Thank you. Continuing the trend of having long titles today. But yeah, basically, I was a bit surprised it's not that much ABAP today. But to relativize that title, I'm not doing much ABAP either. So in that case, it's fitting. I work at CQSE. We build development tools for developers for software quality. And I want to show you how we do code reviews for our ABAP development. Because, yeah, it's coming from a place where, yeah, we are not that much used to developing ABAP, so probably it's kind of different. So let's see. I'm interested in how you are doing things. So to put things in perspective a bit, our company has about 50 developers. Most of those are not full-time development, but also doing either consulting or customer support or things like that. So across the organization, we have about 65 commits per working day. So that should tell you alone that not everybody is developing full-time. Code base is about 2 million, almost 2 million lines of code. Our release model is having one major release every 6 weeks, having bug fix releases every week whenever they are necessary. So there's quite some churn. And here you see, you can't read the legend, but I'll explain that to you. That's the programming language distribution in our development. So the orange part is Java. The dark blue part is TypeScript. The green part is C#. And ABAP is somewhere buried among a few other languages over there. And that already explains why, like, we were not trying to look for things, how to do them the SAP way, but to do things in a way that aligns well with all the other things that we do, because all the colleagues who are developing ABAP are also developing Java tomorrow, for example, and they don't want to like switch tools whenever they switch languages. So therefore, we do have many languages, but we do have one development team and one development infrastructure. And that means our feature tickets, bug tickets, user stories live in Jira. Our code repositories live in GitLab, including ABAP. Our code reviews are done in GitLab merge requests, including for all the ABAP code changes. And we also have one tool that we use for static code analysis that also work across all the programming languages. Disclaimer, we built that tool and we sell that tool, but that will not be the content of this presentation. So the whole development process comes from a non-ABAP world. And we aimed at using everything that we knew worked well outside the SAP world and try to bring it in with as little friction as possible. I'm totally aware some of these things might not be transferable to a large SAP customer organization, but maybe there is some inspiration for everybody in there as well. So how does it look like when we start development? For example, we want to develop a new feature for our ABAP code base. First thing we do in the development system is creating a feature branch. So open ABAP Git, create a feature branch, and this is the first thing the developer would do. And there already is the first thing that you might wonder: what happens if 100 people are working on 100 different features at the same time? The answer is, in that case, this does not work. So you might be able to separate if people work on different packages and these different packages are connected to separate Git repositories, then you can do that. Or if you have multiple system lines, and of course, then these are independent from each other, so people can develop independently. But in our case, at one point in time, we only are working on one ABAP feature. And then we do work on the code, we implement our changes, we test them on the development system, and from time to time, we open ABAP Git, we commit and push those changes into the Git repository. At some point in time, we then, in our GitLab instance, create a merge request, and this is then the signal to a colleague to review that, but we still have one point where, of course, we first check if the tests all run, if the code looks good to ourselves. And then when I'm happy with it as a developer, I set the flag, I invite a colleague to review the code. And that's what I'm going to show you now, what that looks like. So we created the merge request. And then the colleague wants to review that, but we want to make it as easy as possible for the reviewer to do the review. And to make it as efficient as possible, we need some common guidelines. Of course, we need coding guidelines so that reading anyone else's code is easy. We heard that before. If you want to understand the code, I think it was in the earlier talk this morning, the slide said, follow clean code principles, not clean core, but clean code. This is what we meant here. Of course, use consistent formatting. I think that's no news for you. Yeah, we use ABAP Cleaner for that. And then have also continuous and automatic code checks. I probably need to intercept because giving feedback is a topic in its own. Whenever doing code review, there's a few things we should take into account. And the first and most important is we don't want to do it like that. I don't want to be the old angry man standing behind the junior developer and telling them what to do, because that makes everybody feel worse. So I always want to consider that at the receiving end of my code review, there's a person and people have feelings, and I don't want to shout at anybody. And whenever I do that, and whenever I criticize something, I always need to remember I criticize the code. I don't criticize the person. So I want to focus on the code that they wrote and not at who they are. And when I find they did something differently than I would have done it, it doesn't mean that is worse. Probably they just had a better idea than me. So that's also a possibility. So of course, take a moment, consider that, and then think about it. And whenever you're not sure or you say, I don't like that, probably try to phrase that as a question, because yeah, you can't be sure always either. And always don't say, I don't like it, but say, what would I have done differently? Precisely what specifically would be my suggestion for you? Because at the end, those code reviews are an opportunity to learn from each other, and we should use that. Yeah. And at the end, also, if everything is fine, don't say LGTM looks good to me and leave that there, but take the opportunity to say, wow, this is really elegant what you did there, because then, as I said, there's a person at the other end, and people like to be recognized for good things they do from time to time as well. Okay, so I said I click on that what has changed button, and this is what I see then. I see the code as it was exported via ABAP Git, and then I see in color the things that changed, and here just a new method has been introduced, has an ABAP doc comment, so that's probably good. And then the method implementation looks like that in this example. and you see, might recognize some face there. And that person said, that's already pretty good. But if you're using those value statements here anyway, you might just make the whole thing one value statement, and you don't need all the single appends there. And you see here specific example or specific suggestions of what to do differently. And then I give it back. I give the ticket back and I say, I have suggestions for you. Please take a look at those. And the person who makes the decision of whether to take those suggestions or disagree is always with the developer. So I just give it back to the developer. They have a look at those. At some point, they would agree and implement the changes in the way I suggested them. In other points, they might disagree. We might have a short call or just talk about it and come to a joint conclusion. But the interesting thing is it's not finished there then, because it's a cycle. They would give it back into review. And this is very typical in the way we work. It's not just that one approval that you have to pass, but you cycle through those for as long as it takes to make both people agree. Okay, so back to the overview, because the nice thing about these merge requests is you have everything on one single page. So it's very easy to have a look at all the information in one place. We also use those. We generate some checklists into those whenever a new merge request is created, just to remind the reviewer of what are critical things. Has a new whatever table been introduced? In that case, please also have a look at this and that. Or is that a user interface changing ticket? Then please have a look at the documentation. Maybe we need to update a screenshot, something like that. And then I can have a quick look back into the list of changes and see, has its screenshot been updated or not? And once I check all these things, the merge button is also there. So the decision happens also on the same page, whether to accept that change. And then in the background, we have some automation in place. When I press merge here on that GitLab merge request page, then a Jira automation would also mark the feature as completed. And therefore, it can be like it will be included in the next release. Okay, so feature is done. What happens? We merge. I already said that. And then for Java, the Java colleagues would be done at that point and take the next ticket. We open our ABAP Git in the development system once again and switch the branch back to the main branch to signal system is not in active development state at the moment, and then the next person can create their next feature branch. Yes. I think that's all I had. I think I rushed a bit through the slides. So are there any more questions?
I saw on the slide,
yeah,
the time in code. What's that?
You saw on the slide. Yeah, so which slide?
Yeah, time in source. Time in source.
That is all. That means this is the overview of the ticket status in our Jira. It only says like how long has it been in this status. I think how long has the ticket been in the status new? It's 7 seconds because it moved right into the backlog. And then in the backlog, it's just spent 2 hours. And then it went into development. Of course, in that case, it's just example data. That's not the typical way. Of course, sometimes you find something that you want to do quickly and you already know what you're about to do, or you have already started doing it, and then you create the ticket just to follow the process. but that's the idea. The source status is the one to the left of the arrow, and that just means yeah, how long has it been in that status. Of course, we also do dashboards on that to identify like features that have been waiting for a review for over 2 days, and we will look at those in our daily stand-ups to unblock things that maybe got stuck.
For different development tasks, because sometimes they are so different. Like nowadays, sometimes you have priority development, sometimes you have classical things, so you really can't use the same ATC checks without getting too much priority 1 errors.
Question was, how do we organize the ATC checks or check variants, and how often do we execute them, and is that only on transport release? Actually, I forgot. At this point, we all, of course, also release the transport. So that point was missing in the slide. But back to the question, we have a check variant that is pretty low, like it does not contain very many checks. We align that with our coding guidelines and our standards. And how often do we execute that? As often as possible. So actually we have a job that runs every few minutes and just checks the elements, the code objects that have been modified since the last run. So it's always pretty fast, and we integrate that with our own tool and then push it also into GitLab. So that's almost continuous, I would say, so that we get those early, so those fast feedback cycles. I would not say we rely more on the code review. I mean, in the end, all the information results. Okay. We of course we do have security checks enabled, and they are integrated in that continuous process. But right, we don't have that strict check at the end at transport release, because in all the other technologies that we develop, the merge request is the central artifact that we work on. And whenever stuff comes up there, we just don't merge it. So we just try to make that as early as possible. I think when we release the transport request, we basically query the same information. We query what is shown in the merge request, and if there is still new things, then yeah, we wouldn't have already merged that anyway. Yeah, it's just more like we don't have blocking, like hard blocking of transports, because yeah, all our developers are extremely motivated and have a very strong quality focus, and we find it works better in that like providing information fashion, and not like telling people that they can't transport if something is still in there. And it works quite well. And in addition, of course, we have a safety net around that, so that every few weeks and also before releases, somebody looks at it. We collect like the findings that came up in the last sprint, and we do that in a meeting, and we talk about those things, and then we define tasks to resolve those, if there are any. Okay.
Because you mentioned at the beginning this issue with just one branch, of course, in an ABAP system. Have you thought about like using the ABAP development trial in the Docker container on the local developer engines?
Yes, yes. The picture, like the goal was always that, so that everybody has their own local development system or containerized development system, and they can create the feature branch there and develop in isolation. To be honest, we just don't do enough development so that effort pays off. So, but that would be what I would do. Like if we scaled that up, I would definitely look into that direction. Spin up a new container with a dev instance, and then just pull the current code from the main branch into there, create a development branch exactly like that. Yeah. And I mean, there's also commercial tools that do stuff like that, but oh, they did. I didn't even know that. Yeah, we looked at those as well, but they were just too expensive. Yeah, yeah, out of our pay scope.
If you can go back to the slide with the results. Yeah. Can you tell something about team scale? Now we talked about ATC.
Mm-hmm.
We know it.
Yeah. TeamScale is the code analysis tool that we built at our company, and the ABAP code that we built is actually just the connector to SAP systems. Yeah, it contains several just code analysis, code checks for static code analysis, code coverage analysis, visualizations, dashboards, stuff like that. Those central platform to get visibility into your software quality across the company, across all different programming languages. One difference is, for example, we also can integrate other checks from ABAP Lint. We have our own checks that are just not available in ATC probably. And the other important thing is that it runs continuously. You don't have to trigger it. It runs outside the SAP system, and we can trigger it automatically whenever people save in the ABAP development tools. You get very fast feedback, and it works for all the other languages as well. So our Java developers use the same tool, our C# developers use the same tool, Node.js, what have you. So just the same tool for all the different programming languages. And of course, ATC has a lot of very good checks, and that's why we use those, yeah, as well, and just integrate them. Yeah, I think agenda says coffee and cake. Thank you.